Jerry, a couple of questions, and then we're going to open up to the group as well. So, Jerry, as a fellow experienced entrepreneur, what would be some positive advice that you may give to a budding entrepreneur here in the room this evening?
Try to get on with a place like this. There's so many people out there who want to help an entrepreneur. And there's a lot of good organizations that do it, but this is one of the best. I would say this is a great place to start, and he didn't ask me to say that. But we help with the Clean Tech Open. We help the startups in the clean energy space. And one after another said that this was such a great experience that they came through, because we accelerate the ability to get to market. And in today's world, that's really important.
You mentioned the tension between journalists and PR firms. And do you believe that there is pressure on journalists to cater to the moneyed interests, to bring in revenue? And if so, how does your company help to guard against this?
When I started in 1982 at the Miami Herald, we were on different floors advertising in the newsroom. And that had been the tradition in our business for a long time. There was a big barrier. I wouldn't have met my wife if she didn't play softball and I played softball on the co-ed softball team. I mean, you just didn't meet each other. And that's starting to shift a little bit. We're starting to mix advertising and newsroom on the same floor. So more than anything else, so the newsroom starts to see that there's a whole other side of the business that's important, that everybody knows that the newsroom's important. Without the news, we don't have a product. So we're starting to see that. But I don't think there's a whole lot of pressure on the newsroom right now to cater to PR firms. Every so often, I might see something come through that I think is important for a lot of different reasons, and I might ship it to the newsroom. I think that probably has a little bit more sway than just anybody else doing it. But most of the time, the newsroom, I don't interfere with the newsroom, and I'm in charge of the business side more than anything else, so I don't interfere. And I think most of the publishers understand that our credibility is everything. And if we lose that credibility, we lose our readership.
Valid point. What questions do you all have of Jerry?
I have a comment.
Yes, Laurel?
We gave up the Denver Post probably a couple years ago, and you're right, the only thing I read is the Parker Chronicle, and I look forward to it every week because I miss the tangible newspaper. So, and it's free. I mean, it's delivered, it's there, and it's, it's going to be there on Friday. And so I think it's, it's something to look forward to on a weekly thing. It gets you caught up with your community, and I'm very appreciative and thankful. I didn't realize until my son was in the paper that he was in everybody's paper online. Because when I Googled it, it was the Highlands Ranch, the Castle Rock, so the same article went, but it went all in the southern area, and I didn't realize it was all connected throughout the state.
Yeah.
I can say something.
Denver Metro area.
You bet. So Laura's comment was that she appreciates that she has the community newspaper and that it shows up for free and it's tangible and lets her be connected with her community. You want to comment on anything about that?
Yeah. One of the things I didn't mention is that that's what we produce every week. We do this 52 times a year. This is just this week's. And we do share some news and some content, but not a lot. I don't know what your son did, but no, we played a lot of positive stuff. Could have been great. It probably was great. If it's Douglas County schools, we'll print that in all of our Douglas County papers. If it's so we'll print it in all the Douglas County papers. If it's specific to that community, if it's something the Parker City Council's doing, it's just going to run in Parker. And on Google, I have no clue what Google does and how they do it. They won't tell us. They don't share it. But they do. They are now putting their spiders on our websites. It took us a lot of effort to get there. And we are being searched and indexed, and we are doing quite well on search. And it's part of it is because they didn't, if I had your son's story and I had the URL, 6 different URLs for that story, Google didn't like that. They thought that we were doing something to try to manipulate Google. So we've done something where it might run in have one URL, and it somehow or another magically it still shows up if you Google Parker or Douglas. If you were to Google Douglas County Schools, it might show up in all within those websites all 6 times. But thank you for being a good reader. Appreciate that. And
what other questions we have? Yes.
Yes. So earlier you had mentioned your new digital advertising capabilities. I actually worked a long time ago for Colorado Business Magazine, Wisdom Publishing. And what are some of the new roles that you have to think up of these new ad units and to think up of these new, targeting capabilities that you have, and then arm your salespeople with that information? What are some of the new roles that have come up in newspapers to do that?
So the question is, what are some of the new roles you're having to implement or think about as it relates to digital advertising and other methods?
everyone comes to me for the most part because we have what we call the feet on the street. So there's really very few local advertising salespeople in Parker or Highlands Ranch, but I have those. So a lot of the new technologies come to us and ask us to pick up their technology because they can't afford, if they're sitting in Dallas and they've come up with a new widget, they can't afford to hit the whole country. So they're all looking to partner with someone, and we have the feet on the street, which is why I think Gannett just made an offer for Tribune Publishing, which is the LA Times and Chicago Tribune. I think we're going to see that consolidation so that they have feet on the street throughout the whole country. I think we're going to see that. The other thing is that we go to conferences and we share things. At my level, we're not building anything. I try to find best of breed and partner with the right people.
Yes. We're ready to hear, Chris. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes.
So something to comment on, I pulled it up with the huge consolidation in the media, right? So it reads in 1983, 90% of the U.S. media was controlled by 50 companies. Today it's controlled by 6.
Wow.
So I'd like you to comment on that and what's your the view of that.
So the question is that 1990, 90% of the media was controlled by 50 companies, and now it's controlled by 6. And the question is, what are your thoughts on that trend?
The Department of Justice is still looking at media. The Tribune Publishing, before they had this, I don't know if it's a hostile takeover that's going on. I'm not sure if it's that bad, but they made an offer on the Orange County Register, and the DOJ came in and said, no go. You can't have L.A., San Diego, and Orange County. And so they came in and they're still watching it. So that's a real deep question. I don't really know long term if it gets down to less than 6, what that means. I mean, we've seen it. It's not just newspapers. We've seen it in radio, seen it in television. You're seeing it in all the large media. But the thing about what's going on in the world today, everything's so splintered that it's still going to be, even if somebody controlled the message for all the newspapers in the whole country, there's just so many other forms of media. I don't know how much control they're going to have, except that they have direct access to leaders. That would be an interesting thing. Like I mentioned earlier, if I want to, as a newspaper publisher, I can still get on the phone and talk to Mike Kaufman or Senator Bennett. I had a meeting with last year, one-on-one, and that's one of the cool things about being a publisher. But at my level, I can do that. If you are the chairman of the board of Gannett Media, I can only imagine what doors are open to that individual.
Interesting. Let's take one last question. Chris?
You made a reference earlier, Brian, with respect to a local paper in North Carolina protecting the community. I was just wondering for you, Jerry, how do you view protecting the community as one of the foundations of what you're doing to have owning these newspapers?
The question from Chris is, how do you view protecting the community as one of the goals for your newspaper publications?
That's everything to us. That's the watchdog, and we went through a kind of a branding exercise, and the people in charge of the branding didn't like that term. They see that as watchdog. That's the bulldog at the gate, or the German Shepherd at the the junkyard. That's how they see that. And so we may need to recoin that term somehow or another, but that's how people see us, as the watchdog. And that's everything to us. And I mentioned a couple of stories where we made a difference. We drill that into our journalists every day, is that, yeah, we want to cover the good kid doing good stuff. And we want to cover one of the top things that we in our readership survey, people want to read about other people, and they want to read good stuff. So, our journalists, to my wife and I, sometimes might think we're a little soft because we are looking for that too. But that's what our readers want. They don't want to open up the Parker Chronicle and see all the negative stuff, all of it. But we've been right there with the whole Douglas County Schools issue all the way through, and our readership study came back and said, we had some people saying that we were on the side of the conservatives, and some people said we were on the side of the liberals. Unfortunately, in Douglas County Schools, it has become a political issue in some cases. The latest board is trying not to do that, but for a little while it was. And I thought that was good. That means that we are right down the middle, and that's important to us, but we have covered that so closely that there were times where there were 5 stories about Douglas County Schools in our paper. So we take that watchdog issue very seriously. On the editorial side, we are currently not doing editorials and opinion pages. They're very time-consuming to do right. We do endorse candidates, and we see that as very important. And one of the reasons why we do that is not so because my opinion is so much better than any of your opinions, but you don't have the time to give an hour to every one of the candidates and look them eyeball to eyeball, and you probably aren't going to get that opportunity to do it very often unless you go to a debate, and even then the questions are only going to be what the moderator asks. So it's very important for us to do that, and we have, with my reporters and my editors and things, we're seeing what's going on in trends in the community, so we feel like we are someone that can make a recommendation on who to vote for.
Great. Let's give Jerry a round of applause.